Matt and Rachael are getting even more serious after their fun weekend in Florida. Hey guys, welcome back to another shared news from home. We have the latest on Matt and Rachael's relationship, but before we get into it, make sure you subscribe to our channel and ring the bell so you don't miss out on any future updates. I'm your host, Gianna Gravalese, and I'm joined today by the lovely Fiona Zaring. Fiona, I feel like we just keep talking about these two now that their relationship is so public. And you know what? That's fine by me. So let's just get right into it. We've been seeing the many adventures of Matt and Rachael, but their most recent being a trip to Florida, visiting Social Gloves, Battle of the Platform. The boxing event featured YouTubers versus TikTokers, mainly Bryce Hall versus Austin McBrooms. It also featured performances by DJ Khaled, Migos, and Lil Baby. Matt shared videos on his Instagram story of him and Rachael dancing together, both with huge smiles on their faces, and they weren't the only Bachelor alum at the event. Matt also spent some time with his BFF Tyler Cameron, and another Insta story shows Tyler playfully fighting with Too Hot to Handle's Harry Jowsey, and Matt joked around saying, I have my money on Harry. So it seems like they all had such a fun weekend. Fiona, I'm kind of jealous that I wasn't there personally. It looked like a blast with all the influencers, but how do we feel about Matt and Rachael finally sharing so much of their relationship now?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, they're definitely continuing to take major steps forward. In the early days of them, reconnecting, there were sunglasses and hats and they were very secretive. Then that started to ease up and they were much more comfortable being spotted out. And now it's like, okay, Rachael and Matt just went and visited his hometown. Now they're going to events that are going to be, media circuses, right? You mentioned so many celebrities, so many influencers for this boxing match. So it's like, they've totally gone from being super controversial, under the radar, so many question marks, right, to just like an established Bachelor Nation couple. I am really happy for them because here's the thing. I feel like if two people find a connection on a reality television show, which is such a unique way to meet, right, and that connection is so real and so strong that it can overcome, the breakup, the controversy, so many opinions from the media and just people on social media, to get to where they are right now, that connection must really be so strong. And I just don't think I can question it. The world is their oyster at this point, and I am just here for the ride. I hope them, nothing but happiness, because I really do think what they've done is impressive.
I'm right there with you. I mean, I think it is so interesting that, like you said, they went from being incognito to totally public with their relationship, but I mean, what else were they supposed to do? I feel like this was bound to happen from the beginning. And, when before we even knew if they would end up together or not, when they eventually did, I mean, they weren't going to keep it a secret forever. I know as much as Matt James did want to stay out of the spotlight for a little bit, it's nearly impossible, especially when we have a couple from Bachelor Nation. But the two did return back to New York City together when the weekend came to an end, and continue to share photos of each other on social media, out and about in the city, at restaurants and stores. And we even got a totally relatable video of Rachael being hangry and bickering with Matt over food, which is like, I do this all the time with my friends. I can relate to her completely. And before their weekend trip to Florida, Matt and Rachael actually spent time together in North Carolina days prior. They spent time with Matt's mom. They went to a hockey game with her. And, just a reminder to everyone in case anyone's been living under a rock, this is all coming after their public breakup following Rachael's controversy at the end of Matt's season. So, Fiona, I remember it like it was yesterday. We were talking about what we thought Matt's new life post Bachelor would look like, his fresh new start, and everything we said about it is now out the window. So did we kind of see this coming, him and Rachael getting back together? What do you think?
Initially, no, right? After that, after the final rose aired, after he, did the interview rounds, after, his season ended, he did Good Morning America, like multiple stops where he was just very firm and that he needed to basically be by himself. And I believed that, and I honestly saw a lot of value in it, right? I think he did always kind of leave the door open just a crack for there to be a possibility of, him and Rachael to reconnect. But there was definitely a period of time, right, where he felt that she needed to go on her own journey and he needed to be alone. So to me, I guess I always sort of thought that if they were going to find their way back to each other, we would be seeing it in like a year, right? There would be life lived, maybe people in between, and then they sort of reconnect and find their way back. I was not expecting to see them this publicly together and happy so soon. But again, I think it just comes down to those conversations behind the scenes that we're never going to be privy to, right? We know it wasn't an easy road for them to get to where they are. Hasn't always been smooth sailing, of course. But I think these are two people that found a connection that they just thought was so worth fighting for that everything else goes out the window. And I mean, truly, honestly, it's sort of crazy impressive that Bachelor producers even cast her, right? Because they cast two people whose connection was so strong that it was able to overcome challenges and really serious conversations and topics that I don't think a lot of people could overcome. So I was not expecting this, but again, more power to them.
I mean, I was not expecting it either. I remember we were talking about, Matt was doing this like ecosystem thing and he was really involved in the community and he deleted all the photos off of his Instagram and it was like a new chapter in his life and he didn't even want to be affiliated with The Bachelor, but clearly he's loves Rachel. There's nothing else that we can say. This is true love. When you love somebody, you are willing to throw everything else aside to be with that person. And like you said, Fiona, we don't know what conversations were had behind closed doors. We only saw what we saw on After the Final Rose. And you know what? I'm actually really happy for them. I'm glad that they did end up together because as much as her controversy was unacceptable, those socially like insensitive, racially insensitive photos were not okay. I think that it shows how big of a person Matt is and how big his heart is. The fact that he probably had a conversation with her, they learned, both of them, they moved on from it. And that's okay. Relationships are about making mistakes on any sort of level. And you know what? I think it's great that they got back together. And it is quite the surprise, as we both said. But you know what? I'm glad. I'm glad that they have such a connection. And also, as you said, Fiona, power to the casting directors. Like, good job that they actually found people that have such a strong connection as they do. But after all of this, neither Matt or Rachel have addressed Chris Harrison's permanent exit from the franchise. And again, to remind everyone, this is coming after Chris actually defended Rachel during an interview back in February over the racially insensitive photos that resurfaced. And Chris's exit now leaves the franchise's host position open. It is currently being filled by Tayshia and Caitlyn with surprise guest hosts by an eclectic group of people for Paradise. But Rachel's controversy is what ultimately brought her and Matt's relationship to an end, And it's what made Matt wanted that fresh start, not to be affiliated with the franchise. But now the two are back together. They are living their best life. And Chris Harrison just permanently exited. He's gone. So, Fiona, do you think that they should be speaking about Chris Harrison's exit, considering that they were kind of the main factors involved in it before? What are your thoughts?
I think that this is one of those catch 22s, right? Because obviously, if you've been following the Chris Harrison controversy, it originated from an interview where he discussed Rachael Kirkconnell, right? So you're going to expect, in theory, for her or for Matt or for them together to release some sort of a statement. But I also feel like literally no matter what is said in that statement, whether it is super vague, whether it is super, direct, short, long, they can't say anything without it being picked apart, without people feeling probably like they have to pick sides. And it just kind of creates, I think, a new headline, a new discussion topic for people on Twitter, taking their relationship kind of back into a phase of time that they probably have no interest in revisiting. So I understand to a certain degree why they're choosing to say nothing. And I also feel like part of that comes from it really does have to be separate things, right? Because let's face it, at the end of the day, Rachael Kirkconnell had to face the music, learn, educate herself, hold herself accountable for mistakes she made in her past. I've never thought she was a malicious or hateful person, but that doesn't mean that there was room to learn, to grow, to better herself, so that she and Matt, maybe were going to have a fighting chance, and just so that she could honestly be the best version of herself, right? There was room for improvement. We all have room for improvement. That's her journey. Chris Harrison, on the other hand, spoke his truth. At the end of the day, he was talking about Rachael, but the words he was saying clearly came from his heart, his opinion, his mind. So he needed to hold himself accountable for that conversation. As a fan, all I was looking for from Rachael and from Chris were their own individual versions of journeys to accountability. To me, that journey didn't have to end with Chris never returning to the franchise, but obviously that's where we are now. So I think what's hard is, for at least me, and for I know some other people out there at least feel that way, it was never about linking the two permanently. It was just about growth and accountability from both sides. So clearly behind the scenes, Matt and Rachael have grown. They've moved on. They feel like they're on solid ground. Chris couldn't come to an agreement with the franchise that made that growth and accountability create a path back that everyone could agree on. And, that is what it is as well. But I think that if you continue to kind of link the two, that's when things get messy. And I have a feeling that that's partially why they're just saying nothing, right? Because then it just relinks those two occurrences. And I don't think Rachael wants her own journey to really be tied to Chris's. That's just kind of my gut feeling. I think it'll be interesting if we ever even hear them talk about Chris again. I think he might just be an off-topic subject forever. I don't know.
Fiona, I think you just put that so perfectly, because if Matt and Rachael do say something, whether it's just Matt, just Rachael, or them together as a couple addressing Chris's exit, anything they say, even if they put it in the sweetest version ever, is going to be picked apart and put under that spotlight and probably revamp the controversy. We as a
Mhm.
whole, we got the Bachelorette season going right now. We have Tasha and Caitlin as the host. We've moved on from that situation. And now, unfortunately, I mean, Chris is gone, but if that's what he chose to do, then that's what he chose to do. It's not like we can really, at the end of the day, us fans of the franchise can have a say or make them say something, make them make a statement, because anything that happens is just one step on their own journey. I do, on one hand, I would love to say, I think it is kind of like unfortunate that Matt and Rachael, especially Rachael, like everyone's looking at her like, oh, now she's with Matt, everything's fine, everything's great. But I think Chris is still under a lot of fire. He does have his
Mhm.
supporters, but there are people that are still not forgiving him in the slightest. So I hope that Bachelor Nation and all the Bachelor fans in society, if they can forgive Rachael, maybe they can forgive Chris too, because at the end of the day, Rachael is the one that did what she did. I know she did not have ill intentions at all. She was uneducated at the time. And Chris also didn't have ill intentions by supporting her. He's the host. He's supposed to support all of the people around him. So if they're going to forgive Rachael, maybe give, Chris benefit of the doubt at the end of the day, now that he is gone permanently. But we'll just have to see what happens, because as we know, Bachelor Nation is crazy and you can only expect the unexpected with everything. But that is all we have for you guys today. Let us know what you think about Matt and Rachel's relationship down in the comments below. And make sure to subscribe to our channel if you are not already, and ring the bell so you don't miss out on any future updates. I'm your host, Gianna Gravalese. I was joined today by the lovely Fiona Zaring. Come say hi, give us a follow. Our social handles are on the screen right now. Thank you all so much for watching, and we will see you next time. Bye.